So today at evening prayer, I was struck by a single verse, verse 10 of Psalm 96. It reads, "Say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The world also shall be established, that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the people righteously." The kingship of God is a powerful theme throughout the scriptures, and nowhere more so than in the ministry of Jesus. This morning I finished teaching my usual fall semester unit of the life of Christ in the Gospels, and naturally one of the great through lines of that course is "habasileia tou theou," a phrase variously translated as the kingdom, or kingship, or reign or active reign of God. The gospel is nothing if not the good news that God has once again become king, re-establishing his reign over his cosmos through the death and resurrection of Jesus of Nazareth, the God-man. Psalms create meaning through the juxtaposition of phrases in couplets, which can alternatively parallel, oppose, or develop each other. Here I think we have a wonderful example of a developmental triplet. 3, rather than the usual 2 statements, each of which builds and develops upon the previous ones. Say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The active reign of God is not apparent, it needs to be proclaimed. Every atheist, agnostic, or doubter knows this point well enough. I imagine many Christians do as well. It's not obvious that we live in a universe that is properly ordered, is properly just, is properly directed toward the good, the true, and the beautiful. It is not obvious that even if there is a creator, that he is on the side of the moral universe's long arc of justice. Israel and the church exist to proclaim the good news that even though it is not apparent, the Creator God has dramatically intervened in history and fought on the side of justice, peace, and freedom. Ever since his combat against the slavery industrial complex in Egypt, all the way through his defeat of the cosmic powers of sin and death in his own crucifixion and resurrection, the Lord reigns. The world shall also be established, that it shall not be moved. The psalmist here develops the idea of God's kingship to ground it in the fact that he is the creator of a well-ordered cosmos. God's kingship is established for all to see in the public, historically verifiable events of the crucifixion and resurrection. But those are in turn grounded in a trans-historical, transcendent reality of creation. Christianity, therefore, can never simply be a spiritual escape plan. Our goal is not freedom from the material prison of the body into an otherworldly heaven. God is rather powerfully at work to restore order, justice, freedom, and peace to a universe that was always intended to be the good temple of his presence. And he shall judge the people righteously. God's judgment is the exercise of his kingship, and it is grounded in his covenant faithfulness. Biblical judgment is a fearful event, yes, but it is also a hope that God will restore justice after eons of injustice. God will vindicate the poor and the oppressed, proclaim release for the captives, set all things right. The hope for Judgment Day is also a hope for the vindication of God's purposes in creating a universe with both freedom and evil. God himself will be vindicated at the last judgment, showing on the stand that he was right to create a universe that is infinitely better than some static Newtonian world that has neither freedom nor sin. Rather than place our trust in philosophical defenses of God's rightness in creating free beings capable of sin, as convincing as those might be, Christians and Jews place our hope in a final public vindication by God himself. For Christians in particular, Christ has already done this in his crucifixion, where he absorbed the great mass of injustice at work in the world, receiving it at the hands of the world's reigning empire. And he has done it in his resurrection, when God vindicated him and all those who live under his lordship. Still, because it is so preposterous that the end of history has already occurred, so strange that God was finally active in a universally significant way through the crucifixion of one man, so unbelievable that sin and death have been defeated through the triumphant resurrection of King Jesus. Christians must simply proclaim this good news, to say among the heathen that the Lord reigneth. The world also shall be established that it shall not be moved. He shall judge the peoples righteously.